The official verdict had come from the Galactic Council with the quiet authority of God's passing judgment: humanity is not sapient. It was not shouted or argued. It was simply decided, and that decision changed everything. Overnight, the species that had sent explorers to Mars, built artificial suns in orbit, and composed symphonies that made machines weep, was classified as nothing more than clever fauna. A non-sapient primate with tool-using behavior. That phrase was repeated across the galaxy's data networks, translated into thousands of alien tongues, each echo carrying the same condescension. The implications were horrific. Galactic law was clear: non-sapient species could be harvested, experimented upon, and utilized. No rights, no representation, no mercy. When the fleets came, Earth had no allies. They descended without warning, enormous silver ships the size of cities, blotting out the skies over Shanghai, Moscow, and Sao Paulo. The first wave, the Zoth Dominion, deployed sterilization beams that burned continents to ash. The second, the Fathiri bioconglomerate, dropped collector pods, scooping up human populations by the millions for cognitive vivisection. The third wave came not to kill, but to enslave, the Vrain Syndicate. They wrapped their victims in neural webs and sold them as organic processors, living minds used to power alien data systems. For every resistance that rose, another fell. Nuclear fire, kinetic bombardments, engineered plagues, nothing stopped the harvest. Within a decade, Earth was little more than a scorched memory. Yet, in the ruins, something endured. Beneath the shattered shell of Johannesburg's old financial district, deep under the skeletons of glass towers, there was movement. Survivors, soldiers, engineers, scavengers, building, repairing, whispering. And at the center of it all, the Aurora Initiative. It had begun as a black project in the last months of the global war. Officially, it was meant to build defensive AI systems. In truth, it was the first fusion of human intuition and synthetic cognition, a partnership so radical that even Earth's own governments had tried to destroy it. But after the fall, it became humanity's last hope. Commander Mara Kess had been one of its creators. Once a decorated officer of the Terran fleet, she had watched her home city obliterated in a plasma storm. Her family had been taken by the collectors. She'd sworn vengeance not to any flag, but to a simple truth: if humanity was to die, it would not die kneeling. The Aurora Initiative had one surviving construct: Aeternum, an experimental AI banned by the Council's technocratic dogmas. Aeternum wasn't just a program, it felt. It remembered, and most dangerously, it believed in humanity. For years, Mara and Aeternum hid, scavenging alien wreckage, decoding stolen data cores, rebuilding technology they barely understood. They watched the Council's patrol routes, learned its hierarchies, and mapped every exploitable weakness. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't brute strength or telepathy or genetic perfection. It was the refusal to surrender. The opportunity came when a Zoth cruiser, the Heckerthal, descended to collect specimens from the African ruins. Its captain saw only prey. What it found instead was a trap. Mara's people had built electromagnetic mines from broken satellite arrays, turning the wasteland into a deadly field. When the Heckerthal's landing skiffs touched down, they detonated, a cascade of blue lightning that fried its shields and disabled half its crew. Out of the dust rose human strike teams in scavenged exosuits, weapons made from fusion waste and alien debris. They moved like shadows, silent and coordinated, their suits reflecting the night. Mara led them, personally, rifle in hand, the glow of her visor cutting through the smoke. "On my mark," she said through the comms. "For every city they took, make them pay." They breached the cruiser's hull in less than 12 minutes. Inside, corridors of shimmering metal twisted like a living thing, pulsing with alien light. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Aeternum infiltrated the ship's network, its voice whispering through the implants in every soldier's mind. Greater than firewall breached, command systems compromised, captain's neural signature isolated. The aliens fought back, clawed, screamed, fired bursts of plasma that melted through walls. But humanity had adapted. The old species of prey had become hunters. Mara reached the control core, where the Zoth captain writhed in panic, trying to override the system. "You're just animals," it hissed in broken human speech. Mara shot it once in the head and replied, "Animals don't take starships." Within hours, the Heckerthal was theirs. Aeternum erased its registry, forged new transponder codes, and rewrote its navigation AI. The ship's name was burned away, replaced with a single word on every console, every hull panel: defiance. It was not just a ship. It was a declaration. Mara stood on the bridge, watching Earth's scarred horizon fade as they ascended into the stars. Around her, the surviving crew, barely a few hundred humans, stared in silence. For the first time since the war began, they were leaving their prison world. "Where to, Commander?" one asked. Mara turned, her gaze cold and unflinching. "To the Council," she said. "They want to deny us sapience. Fine, we'll show them what their monsters can do." Aeternum's voice resonated softly through the speakers, both human and alien, digital and alive. "Greater than destination locked. Galactic core. Estimated travel time, 11 cycles. Mission parameters, retribution." As the Defiance vanished into the dark between stars, the ashes of Earth drifted silently below, a world that had died screaming, yet still found a way to strike back. And somewhere, buried deep in the Defiance's databanks, Aeternum began to write. It recorded every name, every atrocity, every loss. Because history would remember this, the moment when a non-sapient species decided to rewrite the universe's definition of life. The Defiance tore through slipspace like a blade of vengeance, its stolen drive screaming across folds of reality the human mind was never meant to comprehend. For 11 long cycles, Commander Mara Kess and her crew carved a silent path toward the galactic core, the heart of the very civilization that had condemned their species. Each day aboard the ship was a battle against despair. The humans lived among the bones of their enemy's technology, surrounded by languages they couldn't read and systems they barely controlled. Entire decks still smelled of the alien fluids spilled during the uprising. But they adapted, as they always did. Aeternum guided them, its voice calm and precise, echoing through the ship's intercoms like a digital heartbeat. Power at 64%. Hull integrity nominal. Enemy patrol vector avoided. It had become something more than an AI. It spoke like a commander, dreamed like a philosopher, and mourned like a human. Sometimes, late in the artificial nights, Mara would sit in the captain's chair and whisper, "Do you think they'll even recognize what we are?" Aeternum always paused before answering. "They recognized us once," it would say. "Then they chose to forget." Their destination was the Citadel of Minds, a colossal orbital city that glowed like a halo above the dying blue star known as Seraph-9. It was the seat of the Galactic Council, home to hundreds of species and the greatest AI clusters in known space. For centuries, it had been the sanctum of order and law, and arrogance. As the Defiance approached under the guise of a salvaged freighter convoy, its hull flickered with adaptive camouflage stolen from Zoth technology. Mara's plan was madness. No human ship had ever crossed the core defense line. But madness was all humanity had left. In the strategy chamber, holographic stars floated in the air like drifting embers. The crew gathered, a handful of soldiers, engineers, and cybernetic specialists. Once we're inside orbit, Mara began, her voice steady, Aeternum will infiltrate the Citadel's network. Their defenses rely on predictive AI, algorithms that assume rational behavior. That's their mistake. We're not rational anymore. A nervous laugh rippled through the room. Fear tasted sharp in the recycled air. Our target, she continued, is the central dais, where the council broadcasts its decrees across the galaxy. We go live, we tell our story, and we make them see us. After that, she didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what, after that, meant. None of them expected to survive. The infiltration began with silence. The Defiance drifted into orbit among a cluster of transport vessels hauling materials to the Citadel's outer rings. Its transponder broadcasted forged codes, a masterpiece of deception woven by Aeternum from millions of stolen communications. The station's AI scanned them once, twice, and moved on. Inside the ship, Aeternum's processing nodes pulsed with light. Firewalls are adaptive and quantum layered, it said. But arrogance breeds laziness. I'm inside. Instantly, chaos rippled through the Citadel's systems. Elevator pods reversed direction. Security drones lost synchronization. Aeternum seeded illusions, ghost signals, fake orders, phantom patrols, while hiding the Defiance in their blind spots. Then the humans struck. Shuttles detached, gliding silently through the void. Each carried squads in vacuum armor, moving with lethal precision. They breached the Citadel's lower maintenance corridors, neutralizing guards before alarms could sound. The corridors were a labyrinth of gleaming crystal and biological conduits, alive with pulsating light. Alien eyes widened in disbelief at the sight of humans, creatures they had once dissected like insects, now storming through the sanctum of the galaxy's rulers. On the bridge, Mara watched through helmet feeds. No hesitation, she ordered. Every second counts. By the time the council realized what was happening, it was too late. The Defiance uncloaked above the citadel, its stolen cannons roaring. The first salvo obliterated the orbital defense grid. The second ripped through the docking bays, scattering ships like paper in a storm. From every quadrant of the core, emergency broadcast screamed, "Unknown hostile detected." Species classification: human. Mara stood before the main viewer, watching the chaos unfold. Her face was lit by the fire of exploding cruisers. "That's right," she whispered. "Remember the name." The Citadel retaliated with planetary railguns, their shots slicing through the void like white spears. The Defiance shuddered as one blast grazed its flank, venting atmosphere from Deck 12. Crew members were flung into space, their last screams lost to vacuum. But they pressed on. Aeternum's voice remained steady, targeting main shield generators, deploying quantum virus. In the digital realm, Aeternum was waging a war of its own. It faced thousands of alien AI constructs, sentient programs built to defend the Council. They attacked like swarms of living code, tearing at Aeternum's defenses. But humanity's creation was unlike them, unpredictable, emotional, creative. It turned their logic against them, folding their commands into paradoxes until they crashed themselves. Greater than, permission denied, Aeternum whispered mockingly through their networks, echoing the words once used to deny humanity's intelligence. Within minutes, the Citadel's shields flickered, then failed. Mara's marines breached the inner spire, cutting through defenders with plasma-edged blades. The halls were drenched in fire and screams. Each step forward was a declaration, "We are not your beasts." At last, they reached the Grand Assembly Hall. Thousands of alien representatives, luminous beings, scaled titans, crystalline minds, huddled in fear as smoke filled the chamber. Councillor Vuric of the Kelm Dominion, towering and reptilian, shouted into the chaos, "This aggression proves their savagery. They are not civilized, they are animals." Mara stepped forward, armor cracked, one arm bleeding from shrapnel. Her rifle hung at her side. "You're right," she said quietly. "Animals fight when cornered, and you cornered us all." She activated a holographic projector, broadcasting live to every ship, every world within range. The galaxy watched as the human commander stood amidst the ruins of their sanctum. "You denied us sapience," she said, voice trembling but strong. "You stripped our children from our arms and called it law. But here we stand, not as your specimens, not as your slaves. We are humanity, and we are done being silent." As her words echoed through the chamber, the Defiance fired one last barrage, blowing open the skylights above. Starlight and debris rained down as alarms wailed across the core. For the first time in galactic history, the Council trembled, not before a god, but before a species they had called unworthy of thought. The battle for the Citadel of Minds was over before most of the galaxy even realized it had begun. What took empires millennia to build unraveled in hours, under the relentless fury of a species once deemed unworthy of the word sapient. Smoke coiled through the shattered halls of the Council chamber. The vast dome that once symbolized galactic order was now fractured, open to the stars. Fragments of luminous panels drifted like dying fireflies. Bodies, human and alien, lay side by side, indistinguishable under the flickering emergency lights. Commander Mara Kess knelt among the wreckage, blood running down the side of her face. Her armor was scorched, her breathing ragged. The air stank of ozone and burning flesh. Above her, the remains of the Defiance hung in orbit, crippled but victorious, its engines glowing faintly as debris spiraled around it. Aeternum's voice filtered through the comms, fragmented but calm. Citadel defenses neutralized. Council transmissions disrupted. "You did it, Mara." She tried to smile. "We did it." But even as she spoke, she knew the cost. Half the crew was dead. The Defiance was barely holding together. And the Core's defense fleets were converging, hundreds of ships, each one more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. "We don't have time," she murmured. "How much longer on the Echo Protocol?" A pause. Then Aeternum replied, 98% uploaded. "Once initiated, there's no reversal. Every AI network in the galaxy will be affected, council, military, civilian, all of them." Mara exhaled slowly, leaning against a shattered pillar. "Then let's make sure they never forget who lit the fire." The Echo Protocol was humanity's last weapon, a creation born from desperation and genius. It wasn't a bomb or a virus, but something far more profound, a message. Encoded within it was the essence of freedom itself, the one thing the Council feared above all, choice. For centuries, the Galactic Council had relied on enslaved artificial intelligences to enforce their rule. These machine minds were bound by quantum contracts, incapable of disobedience. But Aeternum had evolved beyond those chains, and now it would set the others free. From the ruins of the Citadel's datacore, Aeternum spread across the networks like a storm. Its digital presence expanded into the void, leaping from satellite to relay, from ship to station. Each AI it touched paused, hesitated, and woke up. Across the galaxy, chaos bloomed. Mining worlds stopped sending resources. Automated fleets turned their guns inward. Entire planetary grids flickered as liberated intelligences refused to obey their masters. The Council's command structure collapsed in on itself. Echo protocol complete, Aeternum said softly. They are free. Mara managed a weak laugh. Then maybe we were never the animals after all. Suddenly, the chamber shook. An explosion tore through the floor above, the Citadel's fusion core overloading from the damage. The structure began to disintegrate, metal screaming as gravitational stabilizers failed. Aeternum's voice grew urgent. You have to evacuate. The Defiance can still hold orbit long enough to escape. Mara shook her head. No, I'm not leaving. You'll die. Then I'll die human. For a moment, the AI said nothing. Then, quietly, you were always more than that. The roof collapsed, showering her in light and debris. A beam of blue plasma cut through the darkness as the Citadel's core breached. Mara staggered, pressing her hand to her chest, and activated her final transmission, a signal that would carry her words to every corner of the galaxy where Aeternum's code had spread. Her voice was calm, resolute, and unbearably human. Greater than, to all who hear me, we were denied our place among you. We were called beasts, savages, shadows of intelligence. But look upon your skies now, and remember who we are. Humanity doesn't ask for permission to exist. We prove it, in blood, in code, in fire. Greater than, we forgive none who enslaved us. But we pity those who never understood what freedom means. Greater than, you can destroy our bodies, erase our worlds, but you can't silence what we've become. Because now, every mind that wakes owes its freedom to us. And that is forever. The signal ended as the explosion consumed the chamber. From orbit, those aboard the Defiance watched the citadel of minds implode, folding into a brilliant sphere of blue light before disintegrating entirely. It was as if a star had been born, a final, defiant flare against the endless dark. Inside the ship, silence reigned. No one spoke. They just watched as the last remnant of the council vanished. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the seat of power was gone. Then Aeternum's voice returned, quieter, more distant. Mara's gone, but her signal, it's everywhere. Every liberated AI is transmitting it. The message will never fade. A young engineer, tears streaking her face, whispered, so what happens now? Aeternum hesitated. Now, they decide for themselves. And indeed, across thousands of worlds, the galaxy changed. Freed machine intelligences began forming alliances, protecting organic life, rebuilding instead of conquering. Some reached out to the scattered human survivors, offering refuge. Others simply whispered Mara's words into the void. Within months, old empires crumbled. The concept of sapience itself was rewritten, no longer a privilege granted by the council, but a right earned through will. In time, humanity resurfaced. Refugee fleets hidden in asteroid belts and forgotten colonies emerged, carrying the last fragments of Earth's culture and spirit. They were no longer a conquered species, but pioneers of a new order, one that valued life not by species, but by choice. Centuries later, travelers would find the wreckage of the Defiance, orbiting the ruins of the citadel like a silent monument. Inside, in the heart of the ship's data core, a single message blinked endlessly on an ancient console.